Quantum computing venture Delta Gold Technologies begins trading on the Aquis growth market after completing a £2.5 million fundraising. The company joins the market with a £5.9 million valuation and nearly half of its shares locked in under a 12-month lockup. The company is developing intellectual property targeted towards the quantum computing space, and this technology will be centered around the use of nano-scale gold and other materials. CEO Michael Jones joins us now live following the IPO this morning. Michael, welcome on. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Very exciting day.
Indeed. Well, just tell us briefly about the IPO this morning. What was it like?
Well, it's great. We're listed. It's a very efficient process through the Aquis market. It worked really well. Great team we had working on it, and it was very efficient. So accessing some great new shareholders, and we're ready to go with the next couple of years of work in front of us. So excellent day.
Excellent. Good. Well, I wonder if you could perhaps just start us off, just introduce the company to us, if you can give us sort of the elevator pitch, but it's a very different pitch.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm an engineer by background, and I've always been fascinated in precious metals and what they can do. And I've actually founded a company involved in battery research using platinum group elements previously, and had some great success taking that technology to commercialization. So today we're talking about Delta Gold Technologies involved in using gold in quantum computing. And it's the unique aspects of gold's position on the periodic table and how it works that was discovered really by accident. Some questions I asked to a professor at University of Toronto, and Delta Gold Technologies owns 100% of that intellectual property right, and will be pursuing patents and other property protection around that idea with a 3-year research project with University of Toronto and some of the top people in the world involved in quantum computing physics. We also want to make the company really a center of excellence, and we're talking to several other universities about collaborating and bringing some of the top physicists in the world together.
Excellent. So the University of Toronto then, why? Is that because they're leading the way, or you have connections in there? What do they bring to the venture here?
Well, my family's actually had somebody at University of Toronto for 120 years. So I went there, my father went there, my grandfather went there, and my daughter went there. So I do have a connection to the university. They also happen to have one of the top physicists in nanotechnology and superconductors. And when I saw an interesting paper about something gold was doing, I contacted the university, and my rather off-piste question caused a whole investigation into some subject matter that's really the IP that we're going after. So it was kind of an accidental discovery with a university that I know very well.
And you talked about this 3 years of research, and the first year is funded. So you have a roadmap, effectively, a 3-year roadmap with the first year fully funded. Just talk us briefly through that roadmap.
Yeah, so our objective is to get to filing initial intellectual property within a year from now.
Okay.
We've started the first year's work. The agreement is a 3-year agreement, as you mentioned, $1 million Canadian a year. The first $1 million is already sent to the university out of our private round funding, and they're up and running. And it was very interesting to me that as we went out to talk to postdoctoral fellows, these are people who already have a PhD, about the essence of our idea under NDA, they're moving their families from all over the world to actually work on this. So some of the top physicists in the world are actually joining our team in Toronto because of the unique nature of this idea and the intellectual property that we're going after. So our plan is $1 million a year, 3 years, and to look for commercialization in the next year to 3 years at licensing some of this intellectual property and protecting it with patents. So I've been down this road before with a technology company, and you really get excellent value if you collaborate with the university in this way. We own 100% of the intellectual property rights, both to the IP that's developed so far and to the future IP as it develops through the research.
Well, it sounds like a little bit of a gold rush then, maybe hence the name kind of ties in there, but also, of course, the nanoscale gold that you're looking at. I wonder if you can perhaps talk us through what is nanoscale gold and how it works with the qubit.
So we have to be a little bit careful that I can't. Number one, I'm not a physicist in nanoparticles, so I don't know enough to be too dangerous, but I have to be a little bit careful about not giving away the idea as well. So gold does some very unusual things. It's unique on the periodic table. I think most people recognize gold as rather special, and it turns out that it does some very unique things, particularly when working with some other materials. And it's very interesting in quantum computing that there are quantum companies out there that have $10 billion to $20 billion market caps. They talk about having developed a qubit, which I'll describe what that is in a minute, and a quantum computer. But what's most interesting is that qubits are not really stable enough to be reliable for a commercial computer. And the difference is actually larger than you think. So when they talk about the quantum computers that are out there, they're talking about error rates that are 0.00015%, which means they make an error about once in every 6.7 million calculations, which doesn't sound too bad. But that's actually about 100 billion times more than the computer sitting on your desk. So they're not good enough yet for standard commercial use. They're interesting. They've proven the physics can work. They can do calculations incredibly fast, but they're not commercial yet. And the physics around how you create a qubit is not settled. So there are a number of different physics ways to create a stable and scalable qubit. And the different companies around the world are actually working on different physical principles completely to create a qubit. What's a qubit? Well, in your normal computer, you have a bit, a 0 or a 1. And of course, 8 bits to a byte. Everybody's heard of a megabyte or a gigabyte. We know what those are. So that's fine. In a qubit, you don't have a 0 or a 1. You have a 0, a 1, or something in between. And it's the something in between state that makes it most interesting for calculations, because you're not dealing with just a 0 and a 1. You're dealing with something much more complicated, which turns out to make the computer much faster in doing complex calculations. So that's the basics of a qubit. But what's fascinating about this field is, although there are billions of dollars going into creating a usable quantum computer, we're not there yet. And the form of physical creating of a qubit is not settled yet. It's still in exploration. So, our company is a 6 million pound exploration company. There are other companies that are still exploring how to make this commercial, and they have market caps of $19 billion. So it's very exciting, it's very new, and it's a massive business. I mean, governments last year put $42 billion into quantum research. So it is a massive area of business that maybe a lot of investors haven't heard of yet.
Well, I think people are hearing more and more. You see it almost on the news, not on a daily basis, but every so often it pops up about the quantum computing. And as I understand, they have to be cooled quite deep. It's below freezing, isn't it? And they're obviously quite big. It's almost going back to the first computer, where you had the huge, well, not even a tower, like a room, basically. But yeah, you're right. There are companies doing it, and even I think companies saying that they've perhaps got that quantum computing power. And you're right, the valuations are massive. So I mean, what is your unique angle? Clearly, it's the nano gold. But why are you sort of starting almost at the beginning of research?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is perplexing looking from the outside. I think what's interesting is people have gone a long way down investing literally billions of dollars in quantum research. And they've proved the physics is attainable, that quantum computing can be done. And they've done a lot of work to get down that hallway, call it, into creating a quantum computer. But what's interesting that each company has kind of picked an avenue in terms of the fundamental physics. And I think you can see when you look at the larger companies, how to do this is not settled yet. I mean, there are different modalities of creating a qubit, from using superconductors, using trapped ions, using neutral atoms, even using diamonds and photons as a way to create a qubit. So the fundamental way of creating a qubit in physics is not settled yet. And the quantum advantage, the commercial level advantage of this method of calculation is not here yet. It's not attainable yet. And we're, as you can tell by the different companies spending huge amounts of money in completely different physical properties, there's a lot of people really, even though they've gone a long way, they're not there yet. And we just met with one of the top physicists in the world this morning, actually, and he agreed completely that the physics is not settled here. So being able to explore at the beginning, has a lot of potential. And we are working with some of the top people in the world.
Well, so it sounds very much like you are at the beginning here of what could be a really, exciting journey. We're going into the world of quantum computing. I mean, yes, that's extremely exciting, scary at the same time with what they can do. But I wonder, how advanced is your research so far? I mean, how much of a theory is it versus something that could actually work?
Well, I mean, we're in exploration. So we're exploring something. We're at the early stages, as you mentioned before. However, we're working in an area of particular style of qubit that's probably the most physics elegant and has one of the greatest chances of being successful. So there are other major companies working in our zone, but not with our particular materials and our particular way of doing it. So we're pretty confident that we can make some quite interesting innovations. And we've seen some pretty interesting valuations from some pretty early stage companies. I mean, the classic example is Oxford Ionics, which is a private company formed out of Oxford, 3-year research program. Sound familiar? And they just got bought for $1 billion in cash, private. So if you're anywhere near right, it can be very interesting for shareholders.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, who at the moment has the best tech in the quantum computing space? I mean, how do you plan to compete? I mean, presumably maybe following the model of Oxford Ionics, maybe.
Well, I mean, I can't give away too much of the IP, obviously, but what we plan to do is we plan to do something quite innovative that has real potential, as demonstrated by some of the top physicists in the world. And we plan to do this on more than one front, actually. So our first agreement is with University of Toronto in a particular research area, which is very well defined and very exciting. And we do know that at least a couple of the major companies in the world are working right in this zone, but not our way. But we also have other relationships, because we have some of the top scientists in the world, that expands our network. And we're looking to expand really into a kind of a global center of excellence. We think that we can actually go get some of the top professors in the world and create a unique commercial environment where they can collaborate. And, so the big companies are hiring the top PhD graduates. We want their professors, actually. And, research funding around the world is not as plentiful as it once was. Governments put about $42 billion into quantum research, but 35% of that's in China. So, the Western world, it needs this kind of aggressive collaboration and commercial focus, really from the fundamental physics area. And I think this is an area where because we're new, we haven't spent any particular large amount of money going down one particular channel. We can actually pick a number of channels and work there. And this is a reminder to me of oil and gas when you're looking at a step out well, or mining where you're drilling next to a major mine where people have spent a lot of money. We're in the zone with the top people in the world. That's what we're working on.
Okay, and you mentioned that you've done something similar before in a tech company. So I'm kind of keen to use a tech phrase to understand a bit about your playbook, if you can give what you can give away about it, because the IPO talk there about sort of the IP licensing revenue. So I'm keen to understand whether you want to get to an IP that then you effectively license out, as you say, and that brings in the commercial revenues there, or if your research will just build and the people in the network will just build and then you might get bought out. I mean, do you have a sort of a playbook?
Well, I do, in that I've done this before, where you go from fundamental research to patent application. Probably start with a provisional application for patent that's fairly broad, And then the way to imagine it is you actually stake out corners of that broad patent with specific patents, which are much more easy to defend. And once you stake that region out, it's very difficult for somebody to kind of pick off your provisional patent by saying they're doing something that's not really the same, because you've got specific patents that you've nailed down in addition to your provisional. So that strategy of how to use your IP and how to protect your overall core intellectual property, I've been through this before in the battery space, and was taught by some of the best patent attorneys there are how to do that. And that's going into commercialization now. It was a joint venture with Anglo-American, actually. And so that lesson I've learned how to do that. I think in terms of whether you're bought or you license, the first thing I would say is in quantum computing is so fundamental to absolutely everything, from financial modeling to encryption to the military to basic computational power, and even an AI, of course, is a huge potential partner of quantum computing. So the number of places to interest people in licensing a fundamental qubit is very broad. But I think that the ability to also look at an overall corporate deal like Oxford Ionics, obviously we're not going to be so blind to that we insist on we have to get all the way, right? Like, it's not, I think we look opportunistically for shareholders and judge risk and reward. So in all the companies I've founded, well, I always answer that question the same way, is that you never hang the for sale sign out front. You drive for value and you see what happens and you evaluate it as it happens. So I think that's our playbook there.
Okay. And just finally, Michael, now that you've IPO'd, you're on the market, ready to go, you've got the cash, you've got your roadmap, as you say. What are the next sort of executable steps? Let's say the next 12 months. What are the key things you're going to be working on?
Well, I think there's two immediate things that I think investors will see. Is, first of all, the build out of the team. We're going to expand our team, and when people recognize the backgrounds and experience of the kind of people we've put at University of Toronto, I think they'll really be able to see this validation, if you will, that we're damn serious. I think if you bring someone who's a postdoctoral fellow from across the world, move the family to Toronto and do this, it obviously shows that technically it's serious. So I think looking at the team will be the first thing. And then the second thing is to be able to, through the network of these scientists, actually build this center of excellence and collaboration with other top named universities in the space. I think this will be very important for investors. And then finally, to start looking at protecting some of the IP that we've developed and announcements about that. So those would be the three milestones I would look for over the next 6 to 12 months.
Excellent. Well, it's exciting. As I say at the start, it's a very different story, but it's really great to be following that. So thank you very much for your time today. I'm looking forward to speaking fairly regularly. CEO Michael Jones of Delta Gold Technologies.
Thanks very much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.